All right, hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Kai Büraval. Thank you very much for attending. Greetings from Germany, Karlsruhe, to Autodesk University 2020. I'm happy so many of you had the time to attend. I hope we'll have an interesting webinar today and everybody learns a little bit. I am going to talk about some disclaimers as usual in the beginning, since there's still a lot of people joining here. So first of all, the webinar is being recorded and you will get a recording sent via email 2 hours after it's over. So 3 hours from now, you should get an email containing the recording of this webinar, and you can watch it as often as you like and share it with others. Let's see. Yeah, the webinar is also, or the Autodesk University presentation you're about to see is going, or is possible to be shared for marketing purposes on YouTube and others. So if you're asking questions in the chat, please feel free to do so. But please mind that I might read out your first name, so you know that it's your question I answered. And yeah, in general, I will try to answer as many questions as possible, but we will have a Q&A in the last 15 minutes of our session. So feel free to save your questions for then. Yeah, let's have a look at what we're going to have a look at today. It's the topic of today's presentation is Enscape 2.9 and Revit. Discover the newest features in real time and VR. So we're not just going to have a look at the contents of the latest 2.9 release. We wanted this to be a little bit of a catch-up or recap of the releases of this year so far. So we're also going to have a really short look at orthographic views, at the BIM mode and the collaborative annotations, at animated trees and grass, and of course the contents of the latest and maybe most important release of this year, Enscape 2.9, adding the custom asset library, displacement mapping, and video textures, and of course new assets as always. And again, in the end, we will have a short questions and answers, so feel free to save your questions for then. I will try to answer as many questions as possible, as always. It's probably, or I probably won't be able to do that. So just so you're aware, if there's any additional questions you would like to discuss at any point and they're not being answered during today's meeting, please be aware that you can also go to our website, enscape3d.com, where you can download an Enscape trial if you haven't done so yet. But also at the very bottom, schedule a free web session with us to discuss pretty much anything you are interested. Yeah, if there's any topic you would like to discuss in detail, please feel free to apply for a demo here. I have a couple messages in the questions that are saying that people can't hear me and there is no audio. That usually happens when they don't set up their hardware in the GoToWebinar settings. They will hear everything in the recording once they receive it. I would just appreciate if anybody could confirm that you indeed can hear me. All right, thank you very much, Joao. All right, thanks a lot. Very much appreciate all of you. All right, let's have a look. First of all, the project that we're going to have a look. Oh, I forgot one thing. Who am I? I introduced myself a little bit, but my name is Kai Büraval. I've been a support agent with Enscape since early 2016. Yeah, I've been to a lot of Autodesk universities, so hopefully maybe someone in the audience I've met already. If so, greetings. I really miss you and miss the well, conventions, and I hope that as soon as possible we will see each other again on these events. Right now, presenting from my very own home, not this one here though. All right, the project that we are going to have a look at today is one of our sample projects that we have set up for the Enscape 2.7 release. Whoops. If you want to have a look at it yourself, if you want to play around with it, you can find it on our website as well under Learn Free Sample Projects here at the very bottom. That's where you can download this very project and yeah, do everything we're about to do yourself. So let's have a look. I have Enscape already open. There we go. Here's our 3D view. And where's my Enscape? Right there it is. So let's assign, or let's align Revit on the left half of the screen here and Enscape on the right. And let's review the 2.7 and 2.8 release, or the most important features in there. First of all, we have the orthographic views, which you can switch to either through the settings, or when this on-screen help is enabled, you can enable them by clicking this little cube icon here, where you can select between the perspective view, the 2-point view, and the orthographic view, which allows, well, for orthographic images, which is a different rendering style that, or perspective style that makes for beautiful architectural visualization, especially if you decide to hide your floors or your ceilings in your views in a Revit directly. Let's see if we can do that quickly. Hide in view. And this way, by hiding walls or ceilings or floors, you can create your own floor plan renderings or elevation renderings really, really quickly. Just hide the geometry in the respective view. I hope. Okay, I hit one geometry too little, so let's go. Oh, okay, more than that. Of course, we could also use just a section box, and you can press the 7 key. No, sorry, the 5 key on your numpad in order to position yourself straight on top of the project, and by that create beautiful orthographic perspectives. So yeah, it's close to the effect we could achieve before by changing the field of view, zooming in to get a sort of orthographic view, but now we have an actual orthographic perspective available. BIM and collab mode as new features in 2.7 and Enscape 2.8. One of them, the BIM mode, can be opened by pressing the B key, which makes you, which opens up a list where you can select all of the available families in your project and select them there, or allows you to click any family. Let me actually go to full screen here, or click any family inside of the Enscape interface and show BIM data in order to display important information that you have entered in Revit, like model number, pricing, for manufacturer, etc., etc. Any data that might be important can be stored in here and is being read directly from the Revit project. So yeah, a good tool to review and discuss a project. Close to that, comparable to that, is our new collaborative annotations mode, which you can enable by pressing the C key. This is what it looks like, and this allows you, by clicking on Create Issue here at the bottom, or by right-clicking any object and click Create Issue here. Let's say we take this chair, Create Issue. It will create an actual issue tracker with a visible marker in the Enscape scene with a rendering of the issue, a title that you can enter, and that you can save, and that others can comment and change the state of. So a great tool to keep track of any kind of progress you want to keep track of in Enscape and in a visual environment, and terribly easy to share because you have multiple ways of exporting your BIM notes, for example, in the BCF BIM collaboration format, or just save your Revit file. If you save your Revit file, all of these BIM collaborative annotations that you have filed in Enscape are being saved in the Revit project file and can then be reviewed inside of Enscape from any other machine that accesses this file. So if you're working on one joint or on a shared server, on a shared project file, you can just save your Revit project in order to exchange information and discuss with your team. So really, really useful. And yeah, everything to facilitate collaboration, information, and understanding. Let me bring back my ceiling here that I tried to hide. Okay, animated trees and grass. That one, of course, is a given. Oops. So if you have a look at our grass now or at our trees, all of these or most of the trees, most of our asset trees and the grass now sway in the winds and make for even more ambient feel of the scene than before. If you have been using grass on the inside, on the interior to produce something like carpet, and now your carpet is swaying in the wind and you don't want that because that doesn't really look realistic, worry not, you can just rename your material. Let's see. Well, I can just open my materials here and look for grass. There we go. And I can rename this to carpet, and Enscape should detect that automatically and exchange the sprite we are using here. If that's the correct material, let's see. Oh, it's this one. Look at that. Okay, my bad. Carpet. Let's call it carpet 2. All right, or not the correct material yet. Of course, you can also look up all of this information in our knowledge base, which we will have a look at soon as well, to have a look at video textures in Revit. So let me actually already share the link with everybody in the chat here. And here you can also see, oh yeah, sorry, long carpet or short carpet, that was my issue. So yeah, this is the sprite that is being used with a carpet material, and that one is mostly there not to sway in the wind. So you have a clear distinction between grass material that is animated and carpet material that is not supposed to be animated. Okay, so that is the review of Enscape 2.7 and 2.8. Let's have a look at the displacement maps, the video textures, but first of all, because I think it's also most important for Revit users, the custom asset library. So many of you people have already enjoyed our Enscape assets, of course, the high quality 3D models that you can import into your Revit scene as placeholders, and that will show up in Enscape in high quality and textured, because as we know, most of us, it is very, very hard to get a 3D model into Revit that has UV information that is created in a complex way. So Enscape has the luxury to just circumvent all of that and load those models into Enscape right away. So of course, this is especially useful for Revit users because now you can decide yourself what quality you will see in your visualization, and you can leave any kind of placeholder inside of your Revit project and as a sort of anchor, and view those high detail models in Enscape right away. How to do that? Simply open the Enscape asset library, like you did before. And in my case, as you see, it already opens on the custom assets. So yeah, by default, it might load with our provided Enscape assets, 2,135 of them. By the way, which since 2.9, you can also download offline by simply checking this box here, which means once opening, it will not reload automatically all the time, but just revert to the file that is saved locally on your machine. But also you can now switch to custom assets here, where you can load in your own custom models, which I've already done here with a TV, as you see. And we will do the same process one more time. So what I couldn't show right now, when you open the custom assets library the first time, it will ask you for 2 folders where you want to save your asset project files and your finished assets. The latter folder can also be exchanged with your company or with anybody else. So you can really prepare your 3D assets and send one folder, one file to somebody else, and they'll just extract it into their respective folder and can access the same 3D assets with the same textures and the same materials that you've already set up. So this is a great way to share a whole set dressing tool set sort of amongst the whole company, and you can decide your visualization outcome, the looks yourself. How to do that exactly? Well, we can either create a new asset by simply clicking this plus button here, or sorry, just getting rid of my taskbar. Yeah, by either clicking this plus button here or the batch import button, where you can import multiple models at once. Or you can edit an existing asset. Let me load in a new one. And this will open the new custom 3D asset editor. And I would like to discuss the other 2 topics that we're going to discuss today, which have been added in Enscape 2.9, namely displacement maps and video textures. I would like to discuss them once in this custom asset editor we have here, and once in the Enscape, in the Revit material editor for, well, the rest of your Revit visualization, because there are 2 separate ways of setting them up. So first of all, I'm going to import geometry into this 3D asset editor. I can do that by clicking this button here, import geometry. Of course, if I already had a project that I want to continue working on, I could open a project, but I'm going to go with import geometry this time. And I can import models in the format of GLTF, OBJ, and FBX. Many of you will know these, especially OBJ and FBX are the absolute standard in 3D industry. And there is plenty of websites where you can download model packages, free or paid for, in very high quality that you should be able to use with Enscape right away. So I have one such model here that I've set up quickly. It's this TV that you saw earlier, so there is not much of a surprise element going on here. And the first thing we notice is that it's not positioned the way it's supposed to be. That's because we have chosen Y as up axis, but it is actually Z. So let me select that, and already our asset is loaded correctly in terms of orientation. On the right, by the way, we have the regular Enscape interface. We navigate this the same way that we navigate in Enscape. So using WASD or the right mouse button to orbit the object. The second thing that I noticed when importing this TV is the scaling seems fairly off. A 4 meters wide TV, I wish I could afford something like that. That's not the case, so let me just dial it down to, let's say, not that I could afford that, but 1.9 meters, I'm just kidding. Just to get sort of the aspect ratio right. And I could load some placeholder geometry in here as well. The placeholder geometry is what you're going to see on the Revit side. So if you have a complex model that you would like to see in a simplified way in Revit whenever working with that asset, then you can load in a separate model. If you are creating your 3D models yourself, that is fairly easy. Just create a lower res version of your existing model. If not, you don't have to look for a placeholder geometry because Enscape will create its own for you. Enscape will automatically create a box, a bounding box of the model that you are importing, and will use that to symbolize your 3D model in Revit. Yeah, so I'm going to leave that for now. Of course, if you have a more complex model, it's really useful to control exactly what way it will look like in Revit. Now, let's give a title to our asset, Test TV for AU 2020. A description, well, we don't need that actually. And we want to set up materials. If you are importing FBX OBJ DLTF with material information already, you can, or materials will be set up to some degree automatically, at least the color and hopefully the texture. But I do recommend to go through every material and check they look good, because the Enscape material editor is unique in its simplicity. So I wouldn't hesitate to use the option to edit those materials in Enscape for Enscape, because it's such a powerful material editor. By the way, it's probably good to have a look into this material editor more closely. This is the material editor that we already provide for example, SketchUp, CAD softwares that have a less powerful material editor compared to Revit. And it holds multiple types like grass, water, foliage, clear coat, and carpet. So in this case, you don't have to name your material accordingly. You can just select it. Apart from that, it has many options that you already know from Revit. So choosing a color texture is what we do here. You can make it self-illuminated, which is the same option as in Revit as well, to make the material glow. You can enable transparency and make it more or less opaque, and so on. And of course, the height map, which we'll have a detailed look at. So let me just set up the materials for this TV. So for the casing, sort of, I want to have a darker material like this. Doesn't look very dark right now, but that's because it's we have a white environment. So as soon as we reduce the roughness a little bit, we'll see that it's actually just a reflection going on here. So that is my TV interface. And on the video input, I could of course just use a screenshot, but I want to use our new video textures. So let me go for this texture file here and just load it in. The image file, or the video file that you can use is, let me look it up, is MP4, of course, as we see here. But you can also use MPEG, M2V, 3GP, AVI, MOV, and MKV. So lots of common video formats that are being supported. And as you see, it will play the video right away, so there is nothing more for you to do. However, this would not glow yet when switched to night view. So if you're setting up a monitor or a TV this way, which is likely you will do more often with those video textures, I do recommend to also enable self-illumination, well, and dial it a little bit up. And really important, change the color from black to, I recommend white, because if your light that you're emitting is black, of course, it's not very bright. So let's switch to white. And with that, our asset is very much finished. In this case, at least. Of course, if you import a model with more than 2 materials, you might spend a little more time on this. But I'm ready to generate a thumbnail, which means Enscape will render a short image to represent this, this model in my asset library. And once that's done, I can save the project and generate the asset. All right, now I can close the custom asset editor, and here's our new asset. And like before, I can choose to either place the asset on an active work plane in Revit, I can place the asset on a selected surface, or I can link an existing Revit family to the asset. So if I, for example, were importing a chair that is especially detailed, and I have a couple of chairs already standing around in my project, and I want to replace all of them in one go, I could just pick link Revit family to asset and link an existing Revit family to instances of this asset. In this case, however, I want to just place this asset on the floor somewhere. Please don't be mad at me if I just place this TV next to the pool here. I know that's not really, there's definitely some safety regulations speaking against that, but the TV that I've modeled there doesn't have a power plug anyways, so that's fine as well. So let's see, why doesn't it show up? It did in my first test. Let me check with my other TV here. Oh yeah, I know why. My bad, because I didn't stop placing the asset yet, so I need to press escape and to resume the Enscape live updates. For whatever reason, it got paused. So once I have them resumed, I should see the TV pop up on my screen right away. And there we go. So here's our TV playing the video right away. And as mentioned, I've enabled self-illumination. So if we switch to night, we clearly see the glow even on the floor of our video, which is really, really beautiful. Maybe I'll even make the material a little more reflective so we can see those beautiful reflections of that video texture. I hope that's the right material this time. We have a couple of these materials yeah, in the project, let's say it like that. So let's see. Yeah, there it is. So as you see, even the reflections of this video are really, really realistic and really beautiful. So yeah, I think that's really one of the most important additions that we've added to the Enscape work set in the recent past, the whole object custom asset editor. So yeah, if you can use it to unleash another level of creativity with Enscape, feel free to share in our forums. We always appreciate seeing that. Let's see if I forgot anything about the custom asset library. I've seen a couple of questions there. Maybe I can read them out quickly. Is it based on OBJ export settings, Pedro, for example? Yes, so anything you import is reading the OBJ or FBX information correctly. So materials that are assigned to certain areas in the OBJ model are assigned in Enscape as well. You just need to redefine the materials. The same is for UV information, textures. So yeah, everything that is in a OBJ file, as long as it's compatible with Enscape, is being read correctly. We use the same Revit families across projects. Is there a way to have Enscape remember and link the same Enscape asset to the same family? Manually assigning assets with each new project is pretty time consuming. I'm sorry to hear that, Spencer. I hope that maybe with the new custom 3D asset library, you can circumvent that, because that way you should be able to define your own placeholders and share the whole library of your custom assets more easily than before. Okay, let's have a look at displacement maps. Let's choose this material for it. Yeah, the one that I've already created or edited. Just making sure it is the right one. changing the glossiness, changing in Enscape as well. Great. So displacement maps are, if you've ever downloaded textures from a online source, like for example, cc0textures.com or polygon.com, you have definitely already seen displacement textures. It's those black and white, bright and dark textures that that are telling Enscape to add relief or distortion to a surface. And there is a technology in CGI and 3D that is called displacement, which doesn't just fake or doesn't just trick the viewer into thinking that there is some detail. It actually adds detail to the very model. Enscape is not 100% using that technology because we don't want to, because that would subdivide your existing model uncontrollably and could result in really, really unstable scenes. But our rendering engineers have found a way to take sort of the best of both worlds. And to highlight how to enable that in Enscape, let me just choose a different texture for the whole thing. My paving stones here. Let's see. Yeah, I think that would be a good example. So let me load a bump map for that as well. And there we go. As you see there, it's called displacement as well. Let me just check the scaling of the texture. That's 360 centimeters. And same here. So if I press apply here, nothing much out of the ordinary happens. The bump is being added like before. We see some relief there, but it's not really strong. Let me see if I can, no. Yeah, let me actually change to white mode so we can see it even better. There we go. So we see there is some changes in the geometry, but it's quite subtle. The opposite is the case if we switch to actual displacement mode. And we can do that by dialing the bump strength above 500. So let's see what that looks like. And clearly you see that's a whole new chapter, or in the truest sense of the word, a whole new dimension for displacement maps. We see there's some actual changes in geometry. Let me maybe switch back from white mode to see the full picture. So you see those are really, or there's some really strong changes to geometry. So you can use this for cobblestones, for actual rocks, for brick walls, etc. And this gives you a much more freedom in creating materials. That's how to implement them in Revit. Just use a bump map and slide it to a strength of over 500. Or again, use it in the asset editor that we've seen before. I didn't show you how to set it up there, so let's do that now. Let's edit our existing. Oh, I did place it, sorry. Let's edit our existing TV. And instead of my black gloss that I had before, let me use a displacement map. So we should be able to see the detail on the back here. Let's load it in as bump map first. And scale it down, because of course that is too big. And let's go down to a 1/10. By the way, this is the texture editing mode we can access in the Enscape material editor here in the custom asset editor. Just click on the texture at the top of the material editor and you'll access the texture editor. Okay. So yeah, here you see the bump we have been using before, and to switch from there we go. To switch from bump input to actual displacement input, just choose it from this slider here. And this could be quite strong. Yeah, so let's dial it down. But here too, you can see the enormous potential that these offer. We're actually sliding through our surface in the back there, so that's why we saw some orange glow. But yeah, this shows the incredible amount of detail that we can achieve using these kind of textures. All right. Now, video textures inside of Revit are a little bit different to add. Let me actually just assign a little bit of a surface to edit. So I'll just use the Enscape Create View tool to be able to jump to this location right away. Oh, Christian, hi there. Nice to see you. Christian, let me know if I may read out your full name. Hi there, Christian. May I? Yeah, Christian Pell, a good friend of mine. I had the pleasure to have a booth together with him at was it Autodesk University? This year flew by, so yeah, exactly, Autodesk University. I think 2 times in Vegas, right? Or was it 1 time? Twice. Yeah, good. I remember correctly. Yeah, lots of known faces, I hope, in the audience. Really a pleasure to get in contact, at least this way. Hope we'll see each other the next years as well. Okay, let's look. There we are. We have already assigned a little surface here to apply our material. Let's just create a new material from scratch. So I'm going to create a new one, and let's call it video. We don't have to. It is totally optional how you name this video. How to get Enscape to know there is a video that is supposed to be played. Let's have a look at our knowledge base again. Here we have an article, and let me just share it with you in the chat if you want to look it up. And there is a very specific string of text that you are supposed to add in the identity tab in the descriptive information. So I'm going to do that. One quick way, if you want to find the location of a video, let's open it here, is I'll right-click it and open properties. And now let me copy this string of text with the brackets, and there we are. Let's just enter it in identity description. And instead of path, I'm just going to copy the location of my video. So I'm going to copy this part here, location, and replace path with it. Then I copy the video name and add it in here as well. Then we have to pick a scale. I do recommend to start with 1:1 if you're not sure how big your video is. Why? We will see that in a second. And lastly, I want to add a rotation, or more precisely, I don't want to add a rotation. I want it to stay the same it is, so I enter 0. Once that's done, it should work and it should recognize this material as a video texture right away. So let's test. We won't see it yet because I haven't applied the material, but I can go to modify and paint it. Painting a video. That sounds weird, but futuristic. Okay, so let's go with that and click here and press done, and let's see. There we are. So as you see, 1:1, the scaling of 1:1 has made the video square. That was a little bit on purpose because right now there is no really good way to place the textures. So I wanted to show you a little trick of mine to at least get there somewhat. Namely, I'll go back to the material, and I will just check how many of these videos are repeating in the horizontal and how many are in the vertical. So that's roughly 6 in the horizontal. So I'll just add 6 as my first number here, and it's 3. Whoops, 6, and it's 3 in vertical. So by placing it that way, it should at least have the same, well, aspect ratio, the correct scaling. In terms of placing the video file correctly, we are currently still looking into solutions how to allow you to best do that. So my recommendation at this point, if it's possible, I think most use cases for the video textures will come with the custom asset library anyways. So if it's possible to use our material editor in the custom asset library, I highly do recommend to manage your displacement maps and your video textures in there. But you can also access them straight in Revit this way. And that is our overview over many of the accomplishments that the Enscape team has been able to develop and to publish this year. Of course, we didn't have a look into our 3D assets that our 3D artists have been creating tirelessly, but as a sort of catch up on what we've been busy with this year, that is about it. I hope it was interesting. Please let me, yeah, I wanted to ask for questions, but there have been questions for quite a while. So let me pick out a couple of them and see if I can answer them right away. If you have any questions that you want me to answer live during today's session, please feel free to write them down now. Otherwise, of course, feel free to schedule a web session, which is fine as well, or head over to our booth. I hope you have the link where some of our experts, for example, Carl Fryer, my colleague, are waiting for questions. So we are here for you on Autodesk University 2020, just virtually this time. Questions. With the availability of the Quest 2, will cable linked and wireless support now work with Enscape? Cable linked support, to my knowledge, worked with the Quest 1 as well. At least we've tried it in our office, and it worked nicely. So I do suppose it will work with the Quest 2 as well. I'm not sure about the wireless capabilities of the Oculus Quest 2, but the same thing with the Quest 1. If you had a powerful Wi-Fi, it was already possible to stream virtual reality onto that surface, onto that device. So I'm really sure that with the Quest 2, you will have the same access to these features. Any update on when ray tracing support will be fully realized to increase geometric reflections count in reflections? So ray tracing is fully realized, or the path tracing that we are using. It's more that we have a algorithm running in the background that is actively taking out objects from reflections if the computer is running too slow to display them correctly. So that's not really a ray tracing issue, or it is, but it's not the bottleneck. But we are working on improving that further at any time. So very much with every release, it should get a little bit better and the performance a little bit better. So there's no real ETA that I can offer at this point, unfortunately, but be aware, we are aware of it, and we are working on improving Enscape quality all the time. I do not, okay, no, that's, any suggestions for night perspective renders? How to go about to get the perfect night shots? Oh yeah, I have some tips there. First of all, be really aware of the auto exposure settings that are enabled by default, because the auto exposure is a sort of equalizer for your brightness, which means if your lights are dim, they will be increased by the exposure. If they are bright, they will be softened or weakened by auto exposure. So if you have some really low light sources or dim light sources in your scenery, and some bright ones, Enscape will look for the bright ones, and you might not see the dim ones, which introduces our night sky. However, it's a huge help for, if you want this style for nighttime shots, to increase the night sky brightness. It might make it look less realistic, but that increases the threshold in which you can work with your artificial lights. And maybe also go to the atmosphere tab and dial down your artificial light brightness to let the environment shine, or let other light sources be better visible. I'm aware that I lost my grass here because I've renamed my material, but never mind. So yeah, that, for example, and of course, if there's any chance, increase the moon scale, because come on, it's supposed to be a nighttime render, isn't it? Okay, so that would be my tip. If you're running into issues, of course, with your nighttime renders, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to discuss them in detail with you. That's just the first tips that came to my mind. Does Enscape provide any lighting that can be used for it, or has been applied via Revit? At this point, all of the lighting comes via Revit or through materials if you have self-illumination enabled, but that's also through Revit. So yeah, any lighting in your scene by now, if it's not sunlight, of course, is coming through Revit and through the light fixtures that you've placed there. Can you export the issues? Do the issues export with the exe file? Unfortunately not. You can export the issues to a BCF file and load them into any issue tracker software. They're not included in the exe file at this point, but that is definitely something that we're looking into. We've gotten a couple of these requests already, and we definitely see the value behind that. So definitely looking into that. What are the Enscape atmosphere settings that you have in the preview? Are you referring to our Enscape preview that we've just released? I'm not sure if we've changed anything about the atmosphere presets, the atmosphere settings. Otherwise, if you're referring to my visualization, here they are. Actually, I could just reset them to default, because Enscape really is made to look the best, if possible, by default. So you can always safely reset your visual presets, and you will still have a great quality. Is the collaboration tool new to 2.9, or was this available in the older versions as well? Taylor, the collaboration tool is available since Enscape 2.8, so since about 4 months. Any possibilities to make people animated for future Enscape versions? We're definitely looking into that as a first step if this is going to be the case. However, they will be animated standing in place, so like an idle animation. Regarding moving people across paths and not hitting walls and not hitting each other, we are still staying away from, because we would have to settle that in your Revit, in your CAD project once again, and that is a lot of changes to your professional project that we don't yet want you to have to do. What happens when having a file with both grass and carpet keywords? I'm asking because I didn't really want to rename the grass for carpet for the desired effect. The carpet keyword is exactly made to be used in combination with the grass material. So they work perfectly fine. Of course, you should not overlay grass and carpet, because that way you'll get a weird mixture of both. But if you have both in the same project, they will work separately, and one, the grass, will be affected by wind, and the other, the carpet, will not. So that's exactly what they are for. Susanna, I didn't see in Revit the little flowers that appear in the grass lawn in Enscape. How was it done? Those are some of our assets, I'm pretty sure. Well, relatively sure. I actually did not make this model, so let's just have a peek in our default 3D model. However, again, you can of course download it yourself and have a look into it. Here they are. Are those assets? Or yeah, those are Enscape assets as well. So you'll find these in our asset library, and you can place them in a group, as you see here, in your Revit projects yourself. Again, sorry for the missing grass, but I won't set it up again now. What is the benefit of loading custom assets in Enscape rather than just adding within Revit? I hope I made that clear. If not, you can assign textures much better, and you can keep your Revit neat and tidy and cleaned up and have only simple representations. And you want your Revit to perform fast and fluently. And Enscape is just made for complex geometry. So that way you have the complex part of the data where it belongs and the speed in your professional model. I would like to use Enscape to create construction sequence animations in SketchUp. Currently I can't because Enscape does not recognize layers being turned on and off in videos. Is that a feature we can see soon? Happy to file that as a feature request. However, we are not developing it at this point, so I can't tell you any ETA regarding that. Will Enscape make it possible to upload custom assets to expand the current library? I hope I'm clear that has been just released. If you're referring to like a shared library that everybody can upload to, it gets a little tricky there because of course we have to make sure no one is uploading copyrighted models and so on. So that's a different pair of shoes, but you can now import your own models, of course. Websites for free OBJ and FBX models. Turbosquid.com is one that I am aware of. Really common 3D site. There's a lot of paid models on here, but also free ones. So huge model library. Same thing with Polygon, by the way. You have 3D models in here as well. Also in OBJ and FBX if you want to. So there is plenty of websites out there if you just look for 3D assets or 3D models where you can get a huge number of 3D models to load in your scene in OBJ or FBX format. How are the sub-elements controlled material-wise in this example? How was the frame selected as the material but not the screen? Pedro. So Pedro is referring to my TV. How did Enscape know the black material was supposed to be on one part of the model and the TV, the video was supposed to be well, where it was on the screen? Pedro, that is simply included in the OBJ from my 3D asset creation software. So I've assigned materials in the 3D software where I've created that TV, and this information, just what materials are in that project and what surfaces are they assigned to, all of that is included in the OBJ and FBX software. OBJ and FBX format. So you don't need to do the assigning in Enscape. You can't. It's not made for that. Would also be quite complex. But you do it in the 3D asset creation process, and Enscape just reads that existing data. Do the video files bog down the model, Alex? No, they're not. The video files as video textures are only loaded when Enscape is started and only on the Enscape site. In Revit, it's just a string of or a string in the information in the description. They're not being loaded if Enscape is not opened. Of course, if Enscape is open and if your video file is relatively large, it will be saved on your graphics card. So if you have 100 of them and they're all separate video files, it can slow down the Enscape performance. But it will not slow down your working speed in Revit. Are you able to add the video material to a material in Revit? Yes, we have discussed that. We use the same Revit families across projects. Oh, I've answered that as well. Today I have been trying to produce some renders, but Enscape keeps crashing when I press render. I'm sorry to hear that. In those cases, whenever you experience crashes or if something is not displaying the way you expect it to, or yeah, anything that looks weird, simply hit the feedback button here in the Enscape menu and send us some feedback. This will include log files that hold all of your computer data we need to analyze the problem like graphics card driver date, graphics card type, operating systems and such. So if your project starts crashing at some point, just hit the feedback button, enter a subject, describe to us what happened, and we will write back to you as soon as possible with steps how to improve the situation or an explanation for why that's the case. Or, of course, you can also write an email to support@enscape3d.com, and we will maybe ask you for that feedback then, because we need that actual data. It depends on the issue you're experiencing. What is the max file size of the OBJ or FBX, Beth? That's a great question. The maximum size of FBX or OBJ, there is none that I'm aware of. But Enscape will bring up a warning once you load in a model that is larger than 20,000 polygons. Simply for you to be aware that your graphics card, of course, needs to calculate all of that on the fly all the time. So our 3D assets, for example, our Enscape assets have a maximum of 20,000 polygons, if at all. But it's no hard cap. So you can load in larger models. There is no real cap that I'm aware of. But of course, at some point, if you're loading in too complex models, it can be a drag for your graphics card. In that case, you will feel it in Enscape's performance. And that's all that warning message is for. Can you please tell us more about exterior lighting and if it has changed since previous versions? Actually, I'm not aware that exterior lighting has changed in any significant way throughout 2.7, 2.8, and 2.9. If you experience something looking different, of course, please feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to analyze the behavior together with you. But as far as I'm concerned, not that I know. When I try to put a video, it seems like a mirror. What is the solution for? It seems like a mirror when you try to put a video. I would love to have a look at that, Kenny. If you could send us some feedback or reach out via a screen sharing session, as mentioned earlier, that would be really, really helpful. Is this webinar being recorded, Artie? Yes, it is. And you'll receive the recording in 2 hours from now. Is there a reason the displacement is confined to the material surface along the edges? Very good point. So I think you've been referring to this. It's not actually changing the edge of the object that the displacement is applied to. It much rather creates something like a parallax, like a glass surface with objects in it. So that's simply because we cannot really change the geometry in a high degree in real time, because that would really slow your software or Enscape performance down. But rather we have this 3D effect that way, which is a compromise between good performance and absolute realism. So yeah, that is good to know of. Good you brought it up. Thanks a lot. That is why. Where can I find videos like that to put on my models? Well, you can create them yourself using your phone camera or any video editing software. So Enscape really isn't picky on the video format input. So just try any video that comes in any of these formats that I've mentioned, and it should work fine. All right, I think I've answered as many questions as possible. Thank you so much for your participation. I hope you have lots of fun, lots of great experiences at Autodesk 2020, Autodesk University 2020. It's been a pleasure to present once again. Thank you very much for attending, and see you next time in the webinar or in the forums. Looking forward to that. Have a good time. Stay safe, everybody. And yeah, see you in the coming years in person again. Goodbye. Thank you so much.